What's up, everyone? Thank you for watching Final Forecast. This is where we look ahead at the future of Final Fantasy. This is a brand new show here on Final Fan TV, and I'm excited to say that the two guests that were on Final Podcast 20 have joined us to talk about the future of Final Fantasy. We have Techno Obliterator of the Final Fantasy Wiki and Sheraliata.
Hi
It
guys.
continues. It's a new show, so I had to say the name again. Steph.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing digital artist, and thank you guys for joining to talk about the future of Final Fantasy. I know you guys are excited because I'm excited about it as well. Final Fantasy VII just had 3 brand new games announced, I think last week at this point. And I don't know, we kind of touched on a few things here and there in Final Podcast that I'd love to elaborate on a little bit more. So what do you guys think of the 3 new games that were announced? We had Ever Crisis, we have First Soldier, and we have, of course, the PS5 upgrade Intergrade.
Do you want to go first, Steph?
I let you go first this time. That's what she
Okay,
said.
yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, so I was really happy with how Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one, ended. Personally, like as much as like I do, so I should clarify my thoughts on the ending before I like get into that. Like I'm perfectly happy with it just because like I was very satisfied with the quality overall of the first game. So with that in mind, I trust them going forward to respect the game's legacy. I trust them to respect the game's characters, the game's story, the game's setting, etc. I trust that these guys have an understanding of what made the original great and that they will keep up with that going forward, right? There's only one thing in the original game that I'm upset with and haven't made peace with yet. And that's just that I was just really upset with Professor Hojo just blurting out, like way early on, like for all the newcomers, that it was like, oh, I remember you. You were never a soldier. I'm like, no, just let people like discover it when they do. But anyway, that's the only real thing I had as a problem with that. So with that in mind, the fact that they're now adding a chapter to flesh Yuffie out more and to explore that story a little bit more is something I'm extremely excited about, because like Yuffie is someone I never expected to be excited for in the least, right? Yuffie in the original game was someone I didn't dislike but didn't really care so much for. She was just kind of there, you know, you can recruit her or you can't. If you recruit her, you get this annoying little side quest that takes way too long and is just really tough. And you'll probably die a few times because you're so reliant on materia like I was back then. Yeah, so Yuffie never excited me much at all. But as soon as the game came out, I'm like, this is the one I'm number one most excited for. And the reason for that is just how Wutai got like introduced into the story so much, right? I mean, I just found the whole concept of Shinra using like the propaganda around Wutai, I found that fascinating because it makes so much sense, right? I mean, in the original game, like Avalanche kind of blow up all these reactors out of luck, right? Avalanche kind of like infiltrate the Shinra building, and they're just really lucky that there's that guy sleeping on the job, as you know, you can clearly see them on screen. And they explained all of that, you know. So they said, oh, well, the reason they were able to blow everything up is because Shinra want them to blow stuff up because they want to blame it all on Wutai and start a new war. Oh, the reason they were able to infiltrate the Shinra building is because Avalanche had someone on the inside, right? So I love when they add little stuff like that. And so with that in mind, the Yuffie chapter is the one I'm most excited about because I really think I'm really interested to see what they do with it next. Now, the other thing I'm extremely hyped for, I'm really hyped for Ever Crisis because like me personally, I actually haven't experienced that much of the compilation just yet. There are other editors who handled that part of the 7 series so far. I haven't experienced it that much that yet, basically. So basically my only way to go back and play those games is to emulate them. And I'm gonna do that, don't get me wrong. Like that's like next on my list of things to do. I really want to emulate Crisis Core. Really excited to play that one for the first time. But a lot of people, that's just not really feasible for them, right? And the original Final Fantasy VII, in a way, is a really dated game these days. Like, I love it. I love it to bits, but it's very hard for new people to get into. So for them to make it accessible to everyone and I'm really excited to see it. I think there's definitely a reason they want us to be able to experience the whole compilation again. And I think they're going to tie everything in together, right? I think they wouldn't want us to experience this again and make it accessible to us again if there wasn't a reason for that. So
I agree
that's
with
my
that. And there's
thoughts on that.
yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot going on that there's a rumor going around that this is just a rewrite. There's nothing, there's no ties to compilation. I think there's way too much evidence to support that there is a tie to the compilation. And like you said, with this with with Ever Crisis coming out to literally recap the entire compilation,
Right.
it's gotta mean something. So I'm actually most excited for Ever Crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty fair choice, right? I mean, like it's just because I'm so excited for what's happening with Yuffie and seeing more there that it slightly puts it over the edge for me. Also, I have a PS5. I'm one of the lucky ones, so I'll be able to experience it when it launches, and I'll be writing all the content for it as soon as it comes out. So please look forward to that. Anyway,
Absolutely.
so it's only because of that it slightly puts it over the edge for me. Right. I have more to say on it, but I've talked a lot, so I'll let Steffi go next.
Yeah, go Steffi.
No, I would totally agree with that. From those games that are coming, I'm not a fan of Battle Royale, or however it's called. So I don't have a single game that I enjoy in that genre, but I will definitely play the Final Fantasy VII Battle Royale, even if it's just to try. And I will probably fall into the gacha game thing as well, because I'm gonna be like, oh god, I hate this game, but look at this costume, I need it. You know how it is. But I'm also most excited for the Ever Crisis one, and not only because we get to experience the things that we already know, especially Crisis Core, but also before Crisis, and we get to play Advent Children. That's something that I really, really look forward to. And at first I was like, okay, but we will only be the chibi characters. Yeah, I mean, that's nice. But in this recent interview, he already said that we are the chibi characters only in the world view, and in the battle view, we will actually get high quality models, which means, we get so many cool new things that personally, yes, I'm a bit selfish that I will be able to use also as well, obviously for renders then. And I'm really excited about that. And when it comes to the remake itself, I sincerely hope that they change some things, especially in terms of Zack Fair, because I hope that there is maybe another dimension in which he actually survives, which I think is very likely given what has happened so far. And I'm really excited about that, because I cannot tell you how much I hope, and this might just be me dreaming a little bit, but I really, really wish we would see Zack and Aerith meeting again. I wish that would be so cool. Yeah, that's my hope.
I appreciate it. I respect that. I don't agree with that. I don't like Zach living. That's just kind of me. But
So the thing with that is that one of the really core themes with Final Fantasy VII was moving on from loss, right?
Exactly.
So that's why Aerith's death is so important in that game, because Aerith doesn't get like a dramatic Hollywood death. She just kind of she's unceremoniously just killed by this bastard just shows up with his massive sword. It's like, I'm gonna kill your girlfriend, bitch. Bye. Right. And then you don't hear from her again. And even though obviously she goes into the live stream and her death affects a lot of things afterwards, right? That, if anything, adds to the theme, because it shows you that even in death, even when you're gone, you've left things behind, right? And things kind of move on from that. So personally, with Zach living, I think Zach also is someone, they kind of retconned him to have a more Hollywood death in Crisis Core.
Yeah.
In Crisis Core,
It
he
worked.
has more of he gets to have his final words to Cloud In the original game, Zack just kind of again dies unceremoniously. He's just walking along and he just gets shot and killed, right? So as for bringing them back, as long as they are respectful to the original themes of the game overall, I don't mind what they do with that. And so the reason why I say that I'm happy with them changing things going forward is because I've seen enough evidence from this first game and the quality of this first game to make me think that they do have that level of respect and that they do know that that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. Speaking of Gold Saucer that we mentioned earlier during the podcast, how excited would you guys be for Gold Saucer in part 2? And like, how would you like to see that represented?
I would be super, super excited, but also if I were part of Square Enix, well, not if I were part, but I believe it would be also work well as a DLC, to be honest, like as an extra standalone little thing that is only Gold Saucer, that would work very well as DLC. But either way, I'm very excited to see it. And um, before I say anything, is I wanted to add to the Zach thing that I don't want him to change the story. I don't want him to change that he died and so on, because honestly, it's what probably made him such a prominent character in the end, because he did do everything he could and he basically paid with his life.
Yes.
I don't want that to change. What I want is that there is a sort of parallel dimension which they might have entered, we don't know, where they might see how events would have gone if he would have survived, but it all comes to the same conclusion that some things have to happen for certain things to go on. I kind of want there to be a, this is how it would be if events would be different, but at the end of the day, some things have to happen, such as Aerith dying, because we get those flashbacks to, we actually in the game have the Advent Children flashbacks, remember, in the actual remake, and Nanaki is saying this is the future that they're trying to prevent, which is Aerith dying, for example, because that's a flashback we have in there. So if they make it so that Aerith doesn't even die in that dimension, then then what is everything for? What if she doesn't die, and because of that, Meteor might come or Sephiroth prevails and he wins because she's not in the live stream, and as a result, the planet doesn't have the power to fight back, or whatever it might be. So maybe we will see her reunite with Zack, only to realize that they have to die. You know what I mean? That could very well be. That's what I think.
I have a bit of a theory on that, but do you want me to tackle the Gold Saucer question first?
Yeah, it's cool to.
No, I'm good with wherever you want to go with it.
Okay, so I'll tackle the Gold Saucer question first, real quick. So my reason for not wanting the Gold Saucer to be a DLC pack, like you mentioned, is a petty reason, and that's just that like transcribing the script for the Gold Saucer in the first Final Fantasy VII is the worst part of working on that script by far. Like I had such a hellish time like writing all that up and all the different variables that go into play. I hated it so much. So I don't want them to do like I don't want them to put me through that again. So that's a really petty reason. So like from the perspective of an editor, I'd hate it. From the perspective of a fan, I would not have a problem at all with spending a lot more time in the Gold Saucer than we got to in the first game, because like I have mentioned, so the Gold Saucer mini games are kind of just a thing that were like thrown together by a few programmers in between tasks, and this time like them like revisiting that, they've really not at any point taken like minor things in the game that just happened like by happenstance and said we don't care about that. They've come back and given everything like the love and care that it didn't get the first time around. So for instance, like there are two characters in the Sector 7 slums that most people will have never heard of. And that's those two little Shinra infantry people.
Loved
right?
it. Yeah.
Where one of them's like the senior officer and the other one's the junior officer. And they have a load of funny dialogue that's so easy to miss in the first one, because the way to trigger that is super difficult. Comes back in the remake, and not only does all that dialogue come back, right, and once again it's fairly easy to miss if you're not looking for it, but not only does it come back, but you even see them in a little scene with Wedge when he's trying to evacuate like Sector 7. So that's just an example of how like every like tiny little detail that most people won't care about has come back and has been given much more love this time. So I'd be happy to see, you know, a chocobo racing that's way more fun to play. I'd be happy to see, you know, what they do with, and they've already kind of tackled the battle square a lot, right? I love the battle square. I thought it was a much better implementation of that like concept than was done in Final Fantasy VI. So I'd love to spend more time in Gold Saucer and see it done more justice.
Yeah.
Now, to answer the question about the ending, right?
Yeah.
And I'm aware that this is a theory that a lot of other people have spouted out before, but my theory on the ending is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is a sequel to the compilation. And let me explain that. So, if you look at how, sorry, not the compilation, the original Final Fantasy VII, right? So, if you look at how Final Fantasy VII, the original, ended, right? The ending is very ambiguous as to what happened at the end, right? Meteor comes down, everything seems like it's been destroyed. Who knows what happens? Here's a shot of Aerith, like in the light, looking at the live stream, and it looks like the shot at the very start of the game, right? That shot, the shot at the start of Final Fantasy VII is Aerith with her eyes open, looking into the live stream. The shot at the end of Final Fantasy VII, Aerith with her eyes closed, open, looking into the live stream. What's the shot at the start of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Aerith with her eyes closed, open, looking into the live stream. So my theory is that this is basically the planet has said, look, we know that everything's screwed up. These Shinra people are taking, you know, the Mako away. They're taking our lifeblood away. They're killing everything. You know, something's got to be done about these humans, man, because these humans suck. These humans are killing us, right? So look, Aerith, as the last Citra alive, you got to do this. You got to lead to these events to happen so that this Sephiroth guy can like just wipe out all the humans and the planet will be safe, right? And Aerith is now saying, fuck that. You know, like, I don't want to do that. I think humans are good people, right? I think, yeah, they are capable of great evil, but they're also capable of great good. So I think let's change this. And Sephiroth wants to change it because he wants to win. He wants to become a god. Aerith wants to change it because she kind of thinks, you know, I kind of think humans deserve better than this. I think they deserve a better ending. So the Final Fantasy VII, the original, is the bad ending where everyone dies and the human race is wiped out. But what actually happens is the end of 7 Remake, where the human race survives, you know, and we get much more clarity as to that ending, right? And just a last point on this, because there's been a bit of a tangent. The last point on that, the original Final Fantasy VII's ending is something that has been widely criticized by most people that played the game. Like, most people have said that, and it hasn't drawn the same controversy as like Mass Effect 3's ending, which I mean, that's a whole can of worms there.
Yeah.
But like, it hasn't drawn the same kind of controversy as that. But like, a lot of people said, you know, I got to the end of the game and I broke my disc in half because I was so unsatisfied with the ending. Like, there are a lot of people that have said like this ending just didn't offer much conclusion. There's not much clarity. You know, it's really controversial, right? So I think Square Enix are aware of that, and they said, well, this is our chance to do things differently this time. So we're now saying this is how we would actually end it. We'll give an actual conclusion to Cloud Strife's story. We'll tell people what actually happened at the end of this, and we'll give people that clarity. So that's my thoughts on this.
Yeah, so you're which is interesting. You're saying that it's actually kind of picking up from the end of Final Fantasy VII, the original. Now, I've heard, the theories that it actually picks up after having children, and then like they kind of go back. And the evidence to support that, I guess, would be through the On the Way to a Smile book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
which
like,
I've read, by the way. Love that
yeah,
book.
it's a great book, and honestly, I think it's probably a must read at this point.
Yeah.
So where Aerith and Sephiroth are in both versions of the live stream, where you have, I think they call it the white and the black side of
Yep.
the live stream,
Yep.
and yeah, so they kind of talk about that. They and I think it was like she discovers that Sephiroth had this plan, and then she didn't know how to counter it, and I almost feel like, well, if Sephiroth has the opportunity to, if the live stream is kind of boundless to the rules of time and stuff like that, and if they can go back and stuff like that, there's that possibility. I would suggest that everyone actually check out Sleep Easy. He makes amazing theory videos. He has a series called The Structure of Five on his YouTube channel. He doesn't put out a lot of videos, but when he does, they're really quality, really good quality, and yeah, he gets really into it. So definitely check out Sleep Easy. It's SLEEP, then EZI. That's it,
Yeah.
EZI. So just check out Sleep Easy. Really good theories there.
I
Uh,
think I'm gonna say on that real quick
yeah,
is
go ahead.
that's kind of like theory videos like that, and a
Mhm,
lot of the theory discussion that fans have after the fact, like is one of the things that really makes a lot of our media today like so enjoyable to be part of that conversation, right? Because like I mean, if you look at like every time a Marvel film comes out, or every time like a new Star Wars thing comes out, like that's what your YouTube algorithm will flood you with, all these videos from all these people saying like, oh, I think this guy's gonna appear, or I think this thing's gonna happen next. And
mhm,
oh, I've taken from the comics to find that this guy is actually super important, and maybe this guy is the real villain of WandaVision or whatever it is, right? And
mhm,
Square Enix knows this, right? Square Enix knows that that's a way to keep your content relevant all the time and to keep people excited. And that's half the reason why I think they did this ending. The other half is just if you look at the original game, it has a whole lot of twists and turns in it as well, right? And really, the only way to re experience what you experienced the first time playing that, like, oh, is Cloud really a soldier? Oh, what's this Sephiroth guy's deal? The only way to be guessing constantly all the time is for them to kind of like change things up a little bit so you can experience that again for the first time. So that's one of the things why I say like them doing this is not disrespectful to the original game. It's more respectful to it because we get to re-experience that again as fans, trying to piece this all together. Like, what does this all mean?
yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, man. I will admit, for me personally, I was after I finished playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, man, that hit me hard.
Mm,
I was kind of like I was kind of depressed after a while,
mm,
because I was like, this is not what I was hoping for. It's been a journey, you know. I mean, like I'm kind of, you know, I coped with it. I got past the.
mm.
I'm at the acceptance stage. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah,
hyped
yeah.
for it
Like
now.
I was similar, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like I didn't want there to be a Sephiroth boss battle at all, but I made peace with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I first played through it, like the majority of stuff they added was stuff that I was happy with, but then there's a couple things here and there, like, oh, I don't know about that one. Yeah, but when I replayed it, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now, and I started to like make peace with that stuff. The only one I haven't made peace with is again Hojo blurting out the Cloud's not a soldier. Like that one kind of annoys me. But anyway, everything else.
Yeah. To kind of go back to the gold saucer, since these are kind of our two main topics right now.
Yeah.
I actually would love to see multiplayer. And now, Steph, you kind of mentioned like DLC. And I think that would actually work out really well. So where you say maybe like part two is up until I don't know where we think part two is going to end. I kind of personally think that it would probably end at the Sleeping Forest. I would love to see it end at the Sleeping Forest, but at that point we've already explored pretty much the entire world at that point, and that's a lot of content they have to put in.
Mhm.
Except for
Um
Medeal.
what Yes, exactly.
Haven't
True.
seen Medeal, haven't
Very
seen
true.
Iceland, etc.
Very true. Yeah. So see, like that's a lot of content to stuff into the next part.
Mm.
Um I kind of had this theory where we would actually end it at at Junin, which is really weird because it's only like a couple
Mm.
flips of your wiki page, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
doom done. We were
yeah.
at Junin already. Like I thought it would be cool to end it right there with the Genova fight on the boat. And that could be the ending of it. But and then of course they'll do some wild thing with their remake. But if they do get to the gold saucer, let's just say we get to the gold saucer. I think it would be amazing to have, yeah, you experience the gold saucer through the story. And then just like we're getting this DLC with Yuffie, we get the gold saucer DLC and it's all fully multiplayer. It's like you can chocobo race with people who created avatars within, and you can explore the gold saucer, kind of like Final Fantasy 14 right now.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Final Fantasy 7, and where you got the gold, the chocobos, you got the the dunk basketball game, which was actually going to be in the original. So I feel like that's a shoe in, where they're going to have a basketball mini game. Um, but
It was
yes,
going to be in Jesse's house,
yep, right
and
outside of Jet, and
it's
the
still
basketball
there.
hoop
You
is
just
right
can't
there.
interact with it.
Yep. So what do you think about that, Steph?
I think it would be super cool, and it would probably make it easier also because they could literally separate, the standalone single player experience and the DSC, which makes it possible to then be multiplayer and but only make it multiplayer in this part, which honestly would make a lot of sense, and I would totally want to play that. But also, it begs the question if it would be multiplayer, how much maybe you could invite, let's say, three other friends, and one would have to be Barrett, one Aerith, one Tifa, one Nanaki. So maybe you could make it like a group experience, but not exactly multiplayer in terms of open world.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
I also thought that they would be really cool for the combat simulator.
Oh
If
yeah,
each
oh
person
yeah,
played
man.
as a different, like
Mm-hmm.
you go into against a super boss, and you have like somebody's Barrett, somebody's Tifa, somebody's Cloud, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that would be so strategic because you would have to communicate like, okay, I need this casted, now, and like, you have to communicate rather than swapping between your characters. You're literally talking to your friends trying to get them to do it, but only in combat simulator. I thought that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, I
That's
would love that.
fascinating, man. Because like none of that ever occurred to me once, and now that I'm picturing it, I think that is like if they want to make multiplayer in this game, that's the way to do it, man. Is like I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, gold source and mini games aside, like that's the way to do it is to let people like fight out, I guess ruby weapon or emerald weapon,
Mhm.
etc., and try out different strategies against them that have been done that way though. Because if you think about it, there's a whole genre of YouTube videos for people finding new ways to defeat Ruby Weapon. Personally,
Mhm.
I'm proud of the strategy I used to defeat Ruby Weapon, and it was basically I gave Tifa like 10 million counterattack materials and maxed her stats. So basically, every time it would hit me, she would attack back like 10 times,
Yeah.
and that's how I beat her. Yeah. Um, but so I'm really proud of the strategy I used there. But like that's the thing, man. Is like them finding new ways to like beat all these super bosses was part of the fun of those. So that would
Yeah.
just be a great way to do it. Like I really love your idea there. You should pitch that to Square Enix and they should include it.
And you
Well,
wouldn't have to come up with your own original character because I think um maybe that's also Final Fantasy 15 comrades or comrades, I don't know how it's
yeah.
called. um I think one of the issues there was, yes, it's nice to create your own character, but you don't really have this bond to them because it's new and you're putting them into a world that you already know from playing through, but you have this bond to Noctis and his friends. And then you're suddenly playing someone new and you have to come up with your own thing. Now, that's not everybody's kind cup of tea. Whereas if you have a group and you can be like, oh my God, yes, I want to be Barrett, or yes, I want to be Aerith. And you have friends that everybody it has their favorite and you
Yeah.
can play that way. That's so much cooler than to have like, oh, fine, an original character, but I would really like to play as Cloud instead, for example.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And like it would happen at a point in the story where it's kind of okay that they're just kind of chilling, experiencing the gold saucer, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like that would be so cool. Like you can get into a lobby and run around as Tifa playing all the games and doing the basketball game or whatever. God, that would be really fun. I actually like
Mm-hmm.
that idea a lot better too than create. I was thinking like creating the avatar just to kind of separate it from the story,
Mm-hmm.
to where it wouldn't, would make a little bit more sense. But yeah, that I think it could make sense if you have the characters you've come to know and love. Yeah, that would be really cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Chat, feel free to chime in on anything that you would like to see gold saucer wise, um, or even your thoughts on the previous games that we mentioned, Ever Crisis, First Soldier, and Intergrade. Yeah, when it comes to First Soldier, I know you touched on it, Steph. You were like, I'm not really
I
in the
touched it.
battle royale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, battle royale is. I'm not really that into it either, especially on mobile. I think
Mm-hmm.
I play Apex a lot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
this looks like it definitely it gives you the vibes of like a Fortnite mixed with Warzone or Call of Duty mobile battle royale.
I did notice that in the battle royale you have they are reusing the assets from the remake, obviously, like the scenery, the slums and whatnot. But I noticed that you're actually outside of Midgard. If you watch the trailer, you're running around on a chocobo outside of Midgard, like sure, right outside of the wall, basically, but it is still outside. And so I wonder just how far they have taken the change in scenery, and probably that's why I'm going to play it. Yes, my team will hate me because I'm just going to go around, look at the scenery rather than shooting other people.
Well, I have your
But
answer for that.
yeah, but
Okay, so Midgar was constructed 31 years, well, they started construction on Midgar 31 years, or the plate, I should say. The plate they started construction on it 31 years before the start of the original Final Fantasy VII. It takes place in 0007, and Midgar began construction in 1976. So this game is set 30 years ago from the events of Final Fantasy VII. So the timelines add up more or less. So
Actually,
it makes a lot of sense that they're starting that, like, this takes place like before the plate is constructed.
Yeah, we were talking about this on last week's episode with Schrodinger's baby seal. He's also another really popular like Final Fantasy VII lore Twitter user. But yeah, we were talking with him last week, and he was like, "Yeah, it kind of doesn't line up because if you look at the trailer, there's the plate above you. It doesn't. I don't know if it looks like it's fully constructed, but I'm like, man, if this is 30 years ago and construction started 30, did you say 31 or 30 years ago?
31 years ago. So
right, I guess
they
in a
began
year's
construction in 1976.
time.
Final Fantasy VII original takes place in 0007.
Yeah.
So this would be ninth. Am I doing the math right? Yeah, this would be 1977. So it would make sense for some of the plate
to be yeah, I guess you got a year, and then
but
like it's Shinra with their mega corporation, I'm sure construction is going along smoothly. But yeah, so going to chat, we got the roller coaster scene from DC Reisman. Yeah, the roller coaster scene would be really cool in remake. Oh, Vincent Graymore, what's up, man? Thanks for tuning in. We got the VR multiplayer. He wants several clouds versus Sephiroth. Well, you could actually kind of play around with the idea of Sephiroth, seeing how in like Crisis Core, Sephiroth was in that VR simulator at the beginning. Like, so he's kind of programmed. I guess if you want to have a fight with Sephiroth within the VR, I guess it would be possible. Yeah, so I personally love the Gold Saucer to remain in the main game. Just fill it with optional content, aka odd jobs. Oh yeah, like they did in Remake, the first one with the slums and stuff. Might be a fun.
Have to keep it in the main game because it's integral to two of the story moments, right?
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
The Gold Source to date, you can't just not include that. And then the thing at the start, the Gold Saucer is kind of integral to Barrett's backstory. So it would need to be in the main game in some form. The question is how much of the Gold Saucer mini games would be in the main game compared to an additional part where you can add all these extras in.
True. Is there any kind of Gold Saucer mini games that you're really looking forward to?
Me personally?
Yeah, you both, you and Steph.
The 3D fighting one.
That would
like,
be, yeah.
The 3D, I'm just really interested to see what they do with that, because the 3D fighting one in the original is, again, it's something they threw together and it doesn't even really work that well. Like, so I really want to see what they do with that to make it work this time.
Okay, how about you, Steph?
I must make an embarrassing confession that it has been so long since I've been at the Gold Saucer that I don't even remember all the mini games.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally the 3D one. That's definitely my answer too.
Well, a lot of the Gold Saucer mini games are also reused from stuff in the game itself.
Within the game,
the submarine is there.
The snowboarding.
The snowboarding is there. G-Bike is there. Obviously, they made G-Bike a lot better this time.
Yeah.
Oh, G-Bike, yes.
Can you imagine what they're going to do with the snowboarding?
That would be so cool.
They've already made a snowboarding mobile game. Like, they made it its own game.
True.
So,
I'm
also like they can iterate on it a little more.
They also made G-Bike a mobile game.
They did. I am looking forward to the gondola scene. And I wonder, because you remember in the remake, certain things that were optional in the original game, they weren't optional in the remake, such as giving the flower to Tifa, which was optional but hasn't been optional in the remake. And I wonder if, when it comes to the gondola scene, if there will be actually some sort of dating mechanism implemented, or if you're just going in with Tifa and there is no question about it, for example, you know. So I'm really looking forward where they take those things.
Yeah, I have an answer to that. Right. So the reason why the thing with giving Tifa the flower isn't optional this time is because it's pretty integral to what happens later in the resolution scene. So like basically the whole starting point. Oh, and also the scene with Marlene, right? Marlene recognizes Aerith because of the flower, right? And the resolution scene, the whole starting point of the conversation is basically, oh, I remember this flower because you gave it to me like a while ago, right? And and it would be really uneven for you to be able to not give Tifa the flower, and then would have completely different requirements to get her resolution scene. So I do think that they will give you a choice because of they gave you a choice for the resolution scene, which by the way, I really loved writing that article. That was one of the really fun ones to write. Once I actually knew what the requirements to get the different scenes were, because when I was first writing it, I didn't have a clue. I'm like, oh, does it matter if you answered whether she's in great shape or not? A war market? I had no clue at the start. Anyway,
first
but
playthrough,
like,
I just answered how I would how I would answer and see what happened played out.
Yeah,
Second time,
yeah,
I was
same.
like, all right, time to check out finalfantasy.fandom.wiki.
Well, yeah, I was the same because like I wanted to date Tifa, and I'm like, and then Jesse was like, oh, do you want to go out on a date? I was like, how do I answer this? Like, if I kind of want to answer yes, but at the same time, I want to date Tifa, so I don't know. Anyway,
I love that they did that. I hope they do it again in part 2.
Yeah,
I would like that if like your choices, but then again, at this point, I'm sure everybody's got the tried to get the platinum or at least seen 2 different playthroughs of it, and like I don't know if your choices are going to carry over to part 2. But if they just kind of like start from scratch and you do a new dating mechanic like they did, I think they're going to keep it going. I feel like they're going to keep that going.
I think we will see more scenes like the resolution scene up until we get the gold saucer scene, and then we're just going to get the full date, right?
Yeah,
I think
they're going to do that.
That's likely what's going to happen. There'll be at least 1 or 2 scenes that are like affected by how you've answered things up till now, right? And that's something they actually brought back from Final Fantasy X, where like who you go snowboarding with. Was it? I can't remember what it was. It was like snowboarding, jet skiing, or whatever it was. But who you go in that scene with and who you have the conversation with depends on who likes you best. And then who throws you the ball for your limit break also depends on who likes you best. So that's something they brought back from that. And I think they have a lot of potential to bring that back again. So I think we're going to get a scene like that every game moving forward.
Here's one from Kreisman saying Kate Sith needs a far better introduction.
Yes.
Like, we're talking Gold Saucer. We have to talk about Kate Sith.
Well,
I call him Kate Sith, guys. I know it's Kate She or Cat She.
It's
or
Cat She.
Cat She.
I'll call him Kate Sith if you do, because I don't want to embarrass you. But
Cat She is fine.
All right. So yeah, not only does he need a better introduction, he needs a better story in general, because he was kind of done dirty, man. Like, I mean, he's introduced, he's like, oh, I'm sure I'm joining you whether you like it or not. And they're kind of like, okay, yes. And that's kind of their reaction. They're like, well, we don't want to get rid of this guy because he's too much of a hassle. And then later he's like, oh, by the way, I've actually kidnapped Marlene, so now you don't have a choice anymore. I'm going to spy on you, but you don't really have, there's nothing you can do about it. It's like, well, that sucks. So he just needs to be written better in general, man. And because there is a really interesting story there, if you look past everything, right? Because there's the conversation he has with Barrett much later in the game where he's like, you say I'm a monster because I work for Shinra and Shinra have done all this horrible stuff. But dude, you killed a lot of people when you blew up those reactors, man. You're not exactly innocent either. Right. And it's just, they both start from the same place. They both start from the place of what Shinra is doing is wrong, but their solution is different. So Kate Sith, or Reeve, the one controlling him, Kate Sith is saying, I'm going to work from within and try and improve things. And he finds out that that's kind of futile because they basically get rid of him. Like he finds out that's kind of futile, but he still starts from like ultimately a good place, where Barrett starts from the place of they're doing everything wrong, so let's kill everyone, right? And there is a really interesting dynamic going on there, and that's something that could be explored if they've written the character better than just having him say, "Oh, I'm holding someone hostage, so you gotta keep me around." It's like, well, how are we supposed to sympathize with you?
Yeah, I feel like that part kind of comes full circle on the High Wind way later on in the game. But I do agree, the introduction and how Catchy is introduced, I feel like that could be a lot better. I do agree with what you're saying. Awesome. What do you think of Catchy or Kate Sith, Steph?
The Scottish, is it a Scottish or is it an Irish accent?
I think it's
Either
Scottish.
way, Scottish accent, it's kind of, it's not, I'm not the biggest fan of it, especially not because it's not even, is it alive or is it not? I never actually got behind that whole thing, even though recently I experienced Dirge of Cerberus again. So, but even so, I still don't have the answer. And it's probably a nice cuddle toy, but aside from that, that's it's not a necessary character if you're asking me.
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
I think another character that needs to be written better is actually Sid Highwind. So
I can't
here's
wait
the
for
thing.
Sid to be on there, man.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Like Final Fantasy VII is a very old game, and so it dates itself in a few ways. In a lot of ways, it's ahead of its time, but in some ways, it dates itself. And one of those is the fact that Sid Highwind is an abusive husband,
Right.
like a completely abusive husband. You know, it's the fact that he's so rude to Shara the whole time, and he's just such a like he's really bad to her, and she kind of says, "Oh, I deserve this." Like, no, that's not territory that you really want to cover in games these days anymore. Like, they gotta handle that a whole lot more respectfully this time, and I think they will,
Yeah,
because
I
you can
agree.
see.
I agree to an extent, but I do feel like I mean, obviously you don't condone any of this stuff, but I feel like it's important to put it back in, like to keep it in the game, just done a little bit
More
uh
respectfully.
respectfully, but also kind of maintain that like Sid is kind of an asshole. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they should take out the backstory entirely, and
okay,
I'm not even saying that they should take out a strained relationship,
okay,
because it's fine for them to have a strained relationship, but they need to portray him as someone way more sympathetic. They need to portray him as someone who like the fact that he like kind of blames his wife in the way that he
yeah,
does when she didn't really do anything wrong, like um they just need to like portray it better. Basically, they need to like handle it a little better, because these days you look at back on that and you kind of think, here's a guy who's an abusive dick to his wife, and just blames her for something that wasn't her fault, and then now we're supposed to forgive.
oh
Um,
yeah, I think we lost Techno. Are you still
okay,
there,
so
Steph?
that's not, yeah, I'm here. I was just
Okay.
afraid like, oh my God, did everything die?
Yeah, I think we lost you there, Techno.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All I was saying was I trust them to handle it more respectfully this time.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so let's see what's okay. So is there anything you guys want to talk about when it comes to the future of Final Fantasy? Final Fantasy VII, I guess we're gonna keep it on that, or Gold Saucer and the new games related. Is there anything else you want to add before we close it out?
Just that I hope there will be many more parts and many more games. And I think, I mean, we have the interviews where they say it's not necessarily just a 3-part kind of thing. It could very well be 5, for example. So my hope is that they flesh out things a lot more. Maybe leave some of the fillers out, some things, not everything has to be in it. But that also, I hope one of the parts is a bit more open world, because the first one is great, but it felt a little bit restricted at times. I'm not sure if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I hope that we get to, cruise around, and maybe even like in Final Fantasy 15, we can cruise around in a car, right? Maybe we can go out of Midgar and actually ride around on a chocobo, and or maybe be in the Highwind and go wherever we want to. That would be great.
So to
Well,
kind
yeah.
of to
Well,
touch
one of
on
the
that
things I
real
loved
quick
about the
about
first
the
one.
open world.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I want to touch on the open world thing, just for a second, because I think that would be phenomenal. To like evoke the feelings of the original, where you said like, oh yeah, you felt constricted in Midgar, you felt if linear, too much linear, in Midgar, and then when you step outside of Midgar and you see that giant open world, and you can, am I still good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Yeah, and you step and you see that open world, and it just gives you that feeling that the original game did so well, where you get that open world feeling. That would be amazing. I
Mm,
don't think it's going to be possible unless they stop it at Junin, like I was
mm,
saying
mm,
earlier,
mm.
and where
Mm-hmm.
that one continent is open world. But
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of say that maybe open zones, like in Final Fantasy 14, where you have
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
these like the huge open zones that you could
yeah.
go to explore, and like maybe you can just keep going until you get to the dotted line that says keep going for Chocobo Farm or something, like
Yeah,
boom.
that's what they did for Dragon Quest as well. Like,
Okay.
and it's something they've done in 12 too. And
Hmm.
by the way, I love Final Fantasy 12. That's like my third favorite game. Anyway, so touching on that a little bit, like I've talked a lot about the lore and stuff, but I think most of my hopes for the future games are for the gameplay, really. So like touching on the thing about, oh, I'd love to be able to like go around the open world in whatever vehicle I want. Like one of the things I really love about the original Final Fantasy VII, this is something that most people probably won't even notice because I didn't notice it the first time. You can just buy a house in Costa del Sol. You can just buy your own house. Like if you get rich enough and you have more gil than you know what to do with, you can just buy a house, and it's not even that useful. It's just you can go around and say, I have this luxury house in this massive like beach town. I just think that's really cool. Like even like Cyberpunk 2077 today, they said they were gonna let us buy apartments, and I can't buy any apartments in that game, and I'm disappointed. Like, I mean, I just love when you can do stuff like that in games, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's just something I really want to see them like let us choose which
But
house we
actually
want
go
in.
into it, right? So that you can actually go into the house and be there and just
Yeah,
live.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just, and you can like use that as a rest point at any time, like. But it's basically you
Cook
only use it if
recipes.
you have more gil than you know what to do with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
so most of my hopes for the future parts relate to gameplay.
Hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so what I really like about the fact that there are multiple parts is this is the first time we've ever seen a Final Fantasy game where they've taken a system and stuck with it for multiple parts so they can iterate on it, right? And what I mean by that is, well, it's one of the series' greatest strengths is always also its greatest weakness, which is that every new game they completely change things up. So, like Final Fantasy V has this really fleshed out job system, right? And you're like, oh, that looks really cool. Like, you can change jobs and whatever, and you can master everyone. Wonder how they're gonna elaborate on that. They won't elaborate on it. Throw it out. Next game, every character has their own job, and now you have the relic system, and you have the espers in Final Fantasy VI. You're like, oh, I wonder what they could do with that. They don't do anything with it. Materia system, and I love the materia system. The
Yeah.
materia system is my favorite one. We haven't seen it since 7. Or well, I mean, we did in Crisis Core, obviously, but we haven't really seen it. We haven't seen them like elaborate on it and expand on it and see how far they can take it, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that like kind of disappoints me about like 8, for instance. Like 8's junction system is such a great idea. We haven't seen what they could do if they could like run with it. Like 12 as well. Like I go back to Final Fantasy 12. I love playing that game, but I just get the sense of like, oh, I wonder if they would add stuff here to it. I wonder if they would, make the license board work this way. And we'll never see that because they just want to change things up. And that's great to keep things fresh. But with Final Fantasy VII, here we have what is, in my view, the best battle system in the series. Here we have like the materia system again. And you see, they've taken bits from Final Fantasy IX, which is also one of my favorites. They've taken bits from Final Fantasy 12 and 13 in a lot of ways. Like they've taken bits from it, And I think they can really go further with the battle system and with the character growth system that they have here. So, for example, like I really love Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system. I love how you can kind of program people to do different things. I'd love to see them elaborate on that. And I think we have a great opportunity to do that in 7 Remake's next part, right?
Yeah.
Because wouldn't it be so cool if I can say, look, for this battle, I want to play as Tifa because I love playing brawlers. So I want to play as Tifa in this, but I also want Aerith and Barrett around. So I'm going to give them commands saying, when I attack this one, I want you to do that. And when I do this thing, I want you to do that.
Mhm. And
So
we've
that's
also
kind of like
seen
my long-winded answer to that.
no, that's awesome. And we in the kind of like tie it into the intergrade that we're seeing. You don't get to play as Sonnen, but you get team ups,
Yeah,
and it would be really cool if you could like team up with. I thought I saw somebody post something about. I think it might have been Maximilian, dude. It might have been.
yeah, yeah.
Where he
He's
was like,
great.
"I want to jump on Cloud's sword, and I want you to sling me up in the air, and I
Yeah,
want to, yeah, that would be awesome." Kind of like what they did with Final Fantasy 15. Like if you're near your friend, and you, I guess if you execute a certain command or something like that, you team up, and you do the. I love the team up moves. So building off of that, I always wondered how they're going to take it to the next level when it comes to part two, because obviously you can't just say, okay, we have established Cloud as Punisher mode and the regular mode, uh, and that's it. We've already established all the battle systems for them. No, they have to keep iterating on it. And I love what you said, because the more that they iterate on it, it feels more like an evolution, which is going to tie into the character evolutions, like just in a regular Final Fantasy game, where you start from level 0 and then by the end you feel like a god. And I want to feel like that. So that's exciting. Yeah. And I guess an example would have been Final Fantasy 13's command synergy battle system, where they just kept kind of building off of that. And by the end of it, it was just they perfected it, I thought. And we
it
also,
makes sense from a narrative perspective too, to
mhm,
see how these guys get along with each other a lot better as well.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I
There's,
loved what they did subtly with
yeah,
Barrett and yeah, and
I
Cloud.
was
And
gonna bring up an example of that. Like, so Cloud and Barrett, like in the first mission, like, because there's a lot of dialogue between them, like in after a battle's finished, right? So like when you've defeated everyone, like at the start they're kind of like dicks to each other. So Cloud's like, good job, and Barrett's like, whatever, man, let's go. And then he's just kind of like dismissive of it later on. And then later on, well, after the battle ends, but then later on, like when you team up with him late in the later chapters, when Barrett's kind of admitted, yeah, actually this guy's all right. Yeah, later on he gets to say stuff like Cloud will be like, great job, and Barrett will be like, yeah, you too. And you just see their evolution and their friendship in that way.
Mhm.
Right? So it makes a lot of sense from a narrative perspective too. And like also because we've seen like so many cutscenes, for instance, of these guys doing all their different team up attacks. Imagine if we can do those in gameplay,
Yeah.
like they promised us a playable Advent Children, right? So I want to see Kate Sith running on top of Red 13 and charging up to like Bahamut Sin that way and be able to achieve that in gameplay. I think that would be great. That's like definitely like a natural evolution of that battle system.
Sunamods, thank you. Oh man, Sunamods is here. Awesome. Be interesting to see what they do with limit breaks, being as we already got some great late game OG ones in part one. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised that they threw that in there. Threw some late games like Catastrophe. I was like, what?
Catastrophe is the final limit break as well.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Like,
What?
and then Anger Max is the most powerful limit break in the whole of Final Fantasy VII, the original. And now it's just a normal attack. You can
Yeah,
just do it.
yeah, yeah. It's Unger Max, so
Well,
yeah.
it depends on
I
the
know. I'm just
translation.
kidding. I'm just
It,
kidding.
depends, it depends on the translation. Like, but yeah, you're right. Anger Max in certain versions of it. Yeah.
Hi,
Now
Tsuna.
it's just a normal attack. You can just do it.
Yeah. Oh man, Steph, did you see anything in chat that you want to talk about, or?
Oh, just saying hi to the people.
Oh yeah.
So far I've known everybody in here, so that's really nice.
Awesome.
And other than that, I'm just here listening to you guys because
Yeah.
it honestly it's informative for me because there's many things that I don't particularly all remember from the original game, and so it's very. I mean, I can always pester Joe with my questions, obviously, but
Well, the thing is, like, I know the game from the back of my hand, man. I've hacked
Yeah.
it. I've like explored every different aspect of it while doing research on it. So like, that's why I'm kind of like, I'm filled with like knowledge from that one.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're
I'm
just
right there
filled.
with you.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you guys. Well, I don't want to keep you guys all day. I really appreciate it, and I've enjoyed the conversation.
No,
So
thanks so much for having me, man. And like I said earlier, like I really hope this podcast can continue to grow and expand. I think what you're doing here is great. And I really love some of the guests you've had on so far. So thanks so much for having us, man.
thank you
Me
so
too.
much.
Just so
Yeah.
you know, Daniel, we've been stalking you too.
Oh, hey, you've been researching?
Well, yes, exactly. Researching, yes.
Research.
Yes.
I know. I kind of felt like when I said, you were like, "Oh man, I'm kind of flattered that you've done all this research," and I'm like, "Yeah." That's research.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I was really excited to have you on. As I said in the podcast, sure, Steph.
Right?
I'm not
Say
even
it.
going.
Say it now.
I'm not
Say
even.
it now.
Shirliata.
Another
Shalia.
one. Good.
Sherida.
Yeah, like just call me Sheridan or Sheldon at the end. It's okay.
Sheldon. Sheldon, I really had a great time having. No, dude, I've respected your work, not enough to know your name, but I've respected. But yes, and I was really excited to have you on the show. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of your art, and I hope that you can continue with achieving your aspirations that we talked about earlier. And yeah, so.
But Daniel, one last thing as we turn this off. If there's one thing you would like to see as a image, render, still life, whatever, what would that be?
Oh,
Because I
wow.
would like to make something for you.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm incredibly honored. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you don't mind, give it some thought. And I message you, but thank you so much. I'm honored, and thank you. If you want to do the Hercules lightning and Latifah thing, that you can go ahead and do that.
You mean the threesome? I see how it is.
No, I'm just kidding. That's not my answer. I want something better.
Okay. You have 24 hours.
Okay, good. I can do that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
And thank you so much, chat. I'm glad you had a blast, and I'm glad it was a fun show for you guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And thank you for all of the new followers that we got off this episode.
Yeah. Oh, we're glad that we got you off and that you had a blast in here. And now you can go and blast yourselves elsewhere.
And you heard it there. All right. That's the official sign off from now on. From now on, I'm so happy you guys got me off today. That will be the official sign off from now on. Thank you so much. I am satisfied.
Good, very good.
Thank you, Techno, for being on the show as well. Thank you, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Once again, thank you for all the work you guys do for the community.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to close it out. And thank you, chat, once again for watching.